guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Today we're going to talk about 15 epic champions that you should book. You should use your very hard-earned or hard-bought. I mean, it's impossible to get these things, you know? These skill books are so incredibly difficult to find in the game, unfortunately. Plarium, if you're watching, give us a way to farm books in this game. I'm going to stop saying it. I'm going to stop my rant before I start it, guys. But anyway, these 15 champions are all really good overall, or champions that are really good at least in one area of the game, and they're way better and way more effective if you do put your skill tomes into them. Now, I shared 10 epic champions that do not need skill books. I'll link that video for you guys in the description below if you want to see some more, I don't know, some more free-to-play friendly or just player-friendly champions out there. So let's go ahead and jump into it, guys. So we're going to start out with one of the strongest epics in the game. He's a simple champion, simple but incredibly effective. Stag Night. Stag Night, the Banner Lord, on his A2, attacks all enemies. 70% chance of placing the decreased defense and decrease attack all on one 3-turn cooldown ability. What are we looking for when we put books into any champion? Of course, reducing the cooldown is really imperative to get the full value of a skill in a given champion's kit, and increase the buff or debuff chance. In this case, it's debuff two of the best, decrease defense, decrease attack on one ability, so you're gonna need to book your Stag Night. You want to get this up to 95% chance rather than a 70% chance of landing, and you want this on a 3-turn cooldown rather than a 4-turn cooldown. It can't get much more simple than this in terms of a champion who's amazing and also requires books to be, you know, at his true capacity. So next up is Gala, guys. Gala, man, I feel your pain. There's a lot of you watching right now probably who are like, man, I know I need to book Gala, or I just booked Gala, or whatever. She takes a lot of books, but you really need them on her. She's a great champion if she is fully booked. Check out her A3. You want to book this down to a 4-turn cooldown and get the chance of landing that decreased defense up to 75% chance for 2 turns rather than a 50% chance. It makes her so much more effective, but it's not just the crack armor ability. It has 6 levels, and then 7 levels on the A2, and then 5 levels on the A1. Ugh. Painful, guys, painful. But Devastate here, her A2, also can be booked up from a 4-turn to a 2-turn cooldown here, and that will instantly activate the A3 if it kills a target. So having this go as much as possible will proc the A3 as much as possible. Gala makes this list at number 2. See, guys, we're getting the most obvious champions out of the way with at the beginning of this video. Skull Crusher. We all know Skull Crusher, man. If you're very lucky, you can book with 1 book. You can get everything you need from Skull Crusher. Only 1 extra level on Stonewall, so 1 book you can get this from a 4 to a 3-turn cooldown. Skull Crusher, you guys know, he's one of the only 3 champions with counterattack in the game, the only non-legendary champion with counterattack in the game. It's for 2 turns, the counterattack, and you want it up as much as possible, obviously, on your team. So getting this down from a 4 to a 3-turn cooldown is going to be absolutely mandatory to get your full value out of Skull Crusher, whether on a clan boss team or just in a dungeon. You want that counterattack up as much as humanly possible. So booking this down to a 3-turn is going to be important, and then hopefully getting lucky and avoiding getting his smash damage booked up, and just, you know, keep it at the Stonewall. Hey, check it out, is Miscreated Monster making his 2nd appearance on the video after the intro. Thank you so much, the Plarium artist, for making me that intro. Miscreated Monster is a beast champion no matter what, but he is way better, especially for spiders. I mean, he's great in all dungeons. I use him on my main spider in my main ice golem team. His A3 has a two levels, both reducing that cooldown of It's Alive from 6 to 4 turns. It's going to help keep your champions alive, obviously, right? It couldn't be more obvious than that with the continuous heal on himself, but the ally protect on all allies is what you're looking for from that It's Alive ability. And then again, his Lightning Storm ability, you're going to want this going as much as possible. Again, this is one of the best shields in the game. It's based on the damage that he deals, so you want to just, you know, put the shields up on your allies in order order to do so, you need to have this ability going off as much as possible. Not only that, but you have a 50% chance of landing a stun on an AoE attack. So the stun, along with an AoE attack that does a decent amount of damage, along with a shield on all your allies, you need this to be 3 turns. I guess you don't need it to be, but you want this to be 3 turns. It's one of the best abilities in the game. Nobody better to buff, right? And then you have a stun, 15% chance on the A1, and a 50% chance of landing a decreased defense if the target is under if the debuff, of stun is placed. So that takes you to a 25% chance from a 15% chance. Actually makes it something that's a little bit more reliable and can add to the overall incredible versatility of his kit. Next up is Tyrell, guys. Tyrell is a, borderline makes this list because I think that Tyrell can actually be very useful even without books. However, getting the debuffs up to their highest percentage is going to be imperative, again, to getting the full value out of one of the strongest debuffers in the game. So he has to be really on this list upon reconsideration. We want to get this attack, this decreased attack on his A1 up to 50% chance. So you have to book his A1 and you have to book his A2 as well. Singing Steel, 75% chance of landing the decreased defense, right? On a 4-turn cooldown. Now again, you cannot book this to a 3-turn cooldown as you can from Stag Night and War Maiden, the other non-legendary debuffers on the AoE. However, you do need to get this 75% up to 100%. So Tyrell's one of those champions who I would definitely advise you guys books. Preemptive Strike is A3, is it's kind of, if you're using him in the arena, I would definitely take this to max. Other than that, you can get by with just stopping as soon as you get the A2 to level 5 if you're lucky enough to do so before getting the cooldown of Preemptive Strike. However, all things being equal, Tyrell's a great champion, so you can just go ahead and invest all books in him if you have them, and you probably won't regret it. Next up is Mausoleum Mage. Mausoleum Mage, one of the best epics in the game, guys. If you have him like me, I sat on this guy in my vault for a couple of the champions actually on this list. Excuse me, I sat in my vault for a while, and then I just saw other people talking about them in the comments here on YouTube, and finally I gave him a shot, and now he's on a couple of my main teams as well. He's amazing in Faction Wars, just great support champion in his Might of Undeath. The block debuffs, the increased crit rate, and the increased defense needs to be booked down from a 4 to a 3-turn cooldown to get the full value out of this amazing ability. And same thing with his Winds of Purging. You want this to take it from 5 to 4, and the extra heal, it helps as well, right? You can get extra 30% on every single one of your heals, and it is an AoE heal, obviously. So it is removing the debuffs from all allies, and then heals all allies by 10% of this champion's max HP, heals all allies by an additional 10% if 1 or more debuffs are removed, and then fills a turn meter if 2 or more debuffs are removed from that ally. So again here, getting these 2 great abilities, Winds of Purging and Might of Undeath, getting them down both 1 turn is just going to make an already amazing champion that much more powerful on your team. If you're building and using a Mausoleum Mage, I would definitely implore you guys to go ahead and invest those books into him. You guys know I'm a big fan of Seer. She is just the queen of doing tons of damage to the minions, the first 2 waves in any dungeon. She's a key part of a lot of speed farming compositions out there. And really, we could talk about her A1, getting a 20% chance of granting an extra turn is nice. In the A2, getting that down to a 3-turn cooldown is good. The weaken on all enemies for 2 turns. But really, the Karma Burn is her big money ability, right? And it's a 6-turn, ability. We want to get that cooldown down to 4 turns, guys. I mean, this is her big ability. If this is at 6 turns, then she's not going to have it ready and set up, especially on auto for the second wave, and it's going to end up taking you quite a long time to get through that second wave, as opposed to if she does have it on a 4-turn cooldown, she's going to make quick work. We're talking just merely seconds to take care of all of the enemies. So having the Karma Burn ability on a 4-turn cooldown is going to be really important if you decide to invest in a champion like Seer. So next up is a champion that a lot of people sleep on in this game, and it's Grizzled Jarl. Grizzled Jarl's a great champion, guys. He's actually going to be the next champion that I build out in Max and do a review here on the channel. Him and another one that's coming up later on this list. So stay tuned, subscribe if you want to check out that content. So on the A2, we have a Ancestral Shield ability. This is only 3 levels, only 2 books need to go into this, but it can bring it from a 5 to a 3-turn cooldown. It places a block debuff debuffs buff on all allies for 1 turn, and the big version of increased defense for 2 turns. Really important to have this on a 3-turn cooldown, right? On 5 turns, it's kind of a meh ability. You're getting one round of block debuffs, 2 round of increased defense, and it's a 5-turn cooldown, you know? 3-turn cooldown, now you're talking. And then on the Earth Stomp ability, his A3, this is an AoE attack, attacks all enemies based on defense, has a 75% chance of placing a decreased attack. That can be booked up to 90% chance. And again, the cooldown on this ability decreases, by the way, each target's max HP by 30% of the damage inflicted, and the cooldown can be brought down to 4 turns. So Grizzled Jarl definitely deserving of a spot on this list, in my opinion. So next up is Ultimate Gelec. Ultimate Gelec was a guy that I borderline making this list. He's not as good as the other 14 champions, in my opinion, on this list. However, he is really good in one area, in Spider's Den, and he was a champion that was available to everybody who was a member of Amazon Prime. So I figured I would give him a nod here because, again, he can be used in Spider's 20, and Spider's 18, 19, 20. So on the A3 can be booked down 2 turns. Burning Rage, his big money ability on a 2-turn extra, cooldown is going to be really, really important. So again, I think a lot of people do rely on Ultimate Gelec for Spiders, and getting this down to from a 6 to a 4-turn is a big, big leap. You can also get the Crushing Hope down from a 4 to a 3. So I do think that books are important for Ultimate Gelec. He also can have his passive, fully heals his champion and instantly removes any stun debuffs whenever an enemy places a stun debuff on this champion. That can be brought down from 4 to a 3-turn cooldown, kind of a whatever, but really the big factor here is Burning Rage, getting that from 6 to 4. Next up is Steel Skull, guys. Steel Skull is still one of the best support/healing champions in the entire game. Really believe that too. On his A1, he also lands poison. Many people use Steel Skull for clan boss, so having him consistently lay poisons, or more consistently lay poisons on this A1 is going to be really important. So the decay, bringing this from a 10 to a 35% chance of placing a strong version of poison for 2 turns, is going to be actually important on Steel Skull. One of the only champions so far that we talked about, his A1 being an ability that you want to book. And then on his A2, getting this cleanse and the heal down from 4 to 3 is going to be super important. And then lastly, protection really books everywhere on this champion. Plays a 60% increased defense on all allies for 2 turns and heals all allies by 20% of their max HP. Getting the extra heal, kind of whatever, but the extra cooldown again on the protection ability, also important for bringing this to a 5 to a 4-turn cooldown. So speaking of great supports, what about Venice, guys? I think a lot of people sleep on Venice. I think that he deserves a nod. Doesn't benefit from books as much as some of the other champions on this list, but his big ability, the ability that he's known for, Oak-Skinned, has an increased defense on all allies for 2 turns and heals all allies by 25% of this champion's max HP. What a great ability, right? On a 3-turn cooldown versus a 4 is going to extend essentially that increased defense on all of your allies for 1 extra turn, or have it up there. You guys get what I'm saying. Instead of 2 out of every 4 turns, it will be 2 out of every 3 turns. So having that increased defense up there and those more consistent heals from an already really good healer on your team, I think that to get the full value from Venice, you really want to have this Oak-Skinned down to a 3-turn. Now on his A1, Spring Lullaby, you can get this 15% sleep up to, what, a 50%, it looks like? So, kind of whatever, right? I don't think it's important to get the Spring Lullaby booked up to 50% chance of landing a sleep. If it was a stun, I would say absolutely, but sleep, meh. But either way, guys, getting Oak-Skinned and his Wither, an AoE attack down to a 5-turn is going to be important, again, to capture the full value of this amazing support champion. Next up is the Unkillable Comp God in really Maneater, right? Ancient Blood. This is a 7-turn cooldown ability. It's an amazing ability. Again, he is a fundamental part of a lot of unkillable clan boss teams, myself included, and it's just great ability, in general. Even if he's not a part of an unkillable team, this champion receives damage, very little damage. You almost don't even notice it, and then places an unkillable buff and a block debuffs buff on all allies for 2 turns. Damage received equal to 5% of max HP, blah, blah, blah. So that could be a 7 to a 5. a 100% a must do if you want to use him in an unkillable comp. Really, if you want to capture the full value of a Man-Eater, or even most of the value out of a Man-Eater, you really need Ancient Blood to be proccing every 5 turns, not every 7 turns. Also, his Siphon ability is a great ability for dungeons, especially. Siphon against a Fire Knight, especially, and an Ice Golem, going to be a great ability. He has a fully depletes the target's turn meter, fills his champion's turn meter equal to the amount the target loses on a 3-turn cooldown. Also makes him kind of fun to mess around in the arena with. Now, only a single hitter on his pummel ability is A1, so I mentioned Fire Knight. Got to take that into consideration. But I've used him on Fire Knight before, had a lot of success just siphoning as soon as the shield comes down, and then it's game over for the Fire Knight. But really, again, between the Siphon, mostly the Ancient Blood, he's just a champion that you need to book. So I mentioned Grizzled Jarl is a champion that I'm working on maxing out next. The other guy is Gorg Arab. So Gorg Arab is a champion that I've always kind of looked at, always been kind of unsure about. Is this dude endgame viable, or is he just really good in the mid game? I think he's actually endgame viable. I don't know if he'll make any of my teams, but increased speed in arena battles by 23%. You could use him on tag team arena. He shines in arena, but you can use him in dungeons. Specifically, Ice Golem. Ice Golem, a lot of your allies often die in the battle, revives any dead allies with 25% HP, and then heals all allies by 25% on the animate ability. You want that extra heal, sure, but you really want this on a 5-turn cooldown instead of 6. Great ability in the animate. It's kind of like a mini Arbiter, right? Very mini Arbiter. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 15%, and then places an increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns on the Resurge. That turn meter is an important part of his kit as well, so having this from a 4 to a 3-turn cooldown gives you 2 abilities that you really ought to book on your Gorg Arab. So Gorg Arab, definitely a champion that I would advise you guys book. I plan on doing so myself before we make that guide. Next up is Sepulcher Sentinel, guys. She is an amazing champion. She has the defense in all battles. A lot of people use her in Clan Boss Specialist, but really just an incredible support champion. Now, the cool thing about her is her passive, I believe this actually unlocks when you ascend her to 3 stars, right? So if you want to book up her the shield ability before you ascend her, you can get this down to a 4-turn cooldown. It only takes 1 book. There's obviously some books that go into her A1 as well, but then you don't have to worry about if you don't want this up immediately, you just want to use her early on for the Sepulcher shield, you can book this before you ascend her. Either way though, you want that increased defense and the block debuffs on a 4-turn, not on a 5-turn. Obviously on the A1, she has that decreased attack. You want this from a 40 to a 60% chance. And then of course on the passive, has a 25% chance of completely blocking incoming damage when an ally is attacked. Occurs once per turn, meaning once per ally, not all your allies on one clan boss attack. But you can get this up from a 25% chance to a 50% chance per attack every turn. A really great champion, a great passive, and really all her abilities do require books to get the most out of them. And last but not least is Sandlast Survivor, guys. She's a great champion, another champion that actually just pulled recently. I might max her out and try her out in Clan Boss. On her A1, you can get the Provoke, helps in dungeons from a 30% chance to a 50% chance. On the A2, great ability, attacks all enemies, decreases the duration of all enemy buffs by 1 turn, increases the duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn. Basically, you can have constant, counterattack on your team, for example, or increased defense when you have Sandlast Survivor on your team, extending those buffs by 1 turn. And you want this on a 3-turn cooldown, so you're always extending those buffs. You're also stripping away essentially the clan boss's buffs with this ability, right? And then on her Born Survivor passive, a great passive, you want this again on a 4-turn rather than a 5-turn. Plays a 50% ally protect buff on all allies for 2 turns when an ally's HP drops below 50%. Also plays a block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn. So the ally protect with the block damage, she's gonna be totally fine. She's gonna remain healthy with a 50% ally protect. You want this on a 5, not a 4, or excuse me, on a 4, not a 5-turn cooldown. So there's a lot of champions that we didn't mention who are really, really good guys in the epic category. A few of them that I thought about including on the list, just to kind of, answer your questions before I see them in the comments, is Madame Ceres, one of my favorite champions in the game. But, she's mostly used in the arena. I mean, she's used in dungeons for sure, but I think that she really shines in the arena, and most of the time, you're just looking for these debuffs to land one time. They're already 100% chance to land these debuffs as is, right? 6-turn cooldown is long, but most of the time, you use this once, and then you nuke the team and it's done, right? Unless you're in Platinum tier arena where, you know, these matches take a long time, and at that point you probably have her booked anyway, right? There's a lot of other champions, actually. I could just go through here and just pick out, you know, another 15 champions that you could definitely make the case require books. Go check out my other video, champions that do not, epic champions that do not require books if you want to. Perfect time to check out the bright side of Raid Shadow Legends, champions that do not require you to pull out your wallet to max out. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. And as always, take care, guys.